Good morning everyone and welcome to the Witch Doctor's Guide to ServiceNow episode number 25. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about IntegrationHub. Our last episode was about the XML parser and we did touch complex objects in there, but I wanted to show a little bit more about it and how they work. So today we're going to take a look at those. And I actually added some more things, like we're going to take a quick look at what you can do with connection and credential alias and the REST API Explorer, for example, just to show you how to get some stuff done with that and what you can actually do with it. It's been recorded in New York release, of course. For those who don't know me, my name is Goran Lundqvist, aka the Witch Doctor. Been playing around with ServiceNow for a couple of years now, I think 5, I guess. Before that, I've been doing most of the stuff you can do in IT, everything from sitting in the service desk to be a system manager, IT processes, yeah, you name it. Then I got into touch with ServiceNow as a customer in 2014, went over to a partner, and now I'm working at ServiceNow internally as a senior application developer. I guess that's about me. Mostly, hopefully, known me or seen my other videos. If you'd like to get in touch with me, just feel free to, I think this is the right way, to hit me on the contact details in the picture here. Also wrote a book. I know I've been nagging about it in my videos, but if you like it, and feel free to go to Amazon, just search ServiceNow, will pop up. I have tried to write down most of the knowledge I have come up with over the years and trying to help you not do the same mistakes I did or scratch your head and wondering how does this work. But enough about that. Today, a short agenda. Let's take a look at the complex objects, which is new. How does they work? We're going to take a look at the connection and credential alias, and a little bit how REST calls work in the IntegrationHub. And in this case, I'm just going to call my own instance. So I'm just going to show you the REST API Explorer if you don't know about that one, to see how you can test your own APIs as well. So let's skip the PowerPoint. Let's get rid of that. So first of all, we're talking about IntegrationHub. We need to start the flow designer. So let's get that one up. I've already started it. You get it by just typing flow. You have the flow designer up here. Hopefully you are familiar with it. I think it came around in, was it Kingston or London? Time flies when you're having fun, I guess. So to show you this, I have actually built 2 custom actions, and that is basically where you will use these complex objects. And let's go for the first one. So let's see, what are complex objects? Everywhere when you can do and create an input or an output, you can build these complex outputs. And basically what they actually give you is that you can have a variable, let's call it test1. And now if you type array, you can see that you can actually now have an array of, for example, objects or booleans, whatever. But by using this, and especially in the outputs, that means that later on in the flow you can actually use that output in like a for each loop and all those kind of cool stuff that we use in flows, which you haven't been able to do before. And of course you can build a lot more complex nestled objects as well. You can have an array. I'm just going to show you, and in that array we have an object called test, and in that object we'll have field 1. You can see my imagination is great. Then we can have field 2, and you can see you can of course change. So this field might also be an array of objects, for example, and then you can be deeper and deeper nested queries to actually use this functionality. But what I've been clicking around here now is actually in the inputs. You can do like that. And I'm not going to have anything there, so let's just delete those. So in this basic show and tell, I just look up some records. In this case, I just say find me users in the HR department and give me 4 of them. Then I have a script step, and this is where the fun starts. So before you start doing the code, I would recommend building the object down here as an output first, because when you're using the script, you will need or use the name of the different variable in your script as well. So it's good to have those defined first, then start using them. So what do I do in the script step? First of all, you can see from my lookup records, I have the records in this data. So I have an input variable for the script that says that that data should go into this variable. Then, since our complex data is an array of objects, I create a variable called users, and in this case I use the same, so it's easier to understand where they should go. Then I just use a variable that can increase, and then I start looping through the records that I got from the lookup. And here you can see I just do input.useRecords.next, just like a normal glide query. And then of course for each record I go through, I need to have an object, just like here. So I define this one, and then I use the same names here as on the object in here. So first name, I fetch the first name from the user, last name the same thing, and for the sys user I just get the sys user from sys ID from the user. Then we have the and push that object, because now we're done with that object, we push that into the array, and then we loop through the next one. When we're done, I say that this object output.users equals users, meaning the array that I created from the start up here. Let me just do like this. Just turn off my Outlook so it won't be popping up the whole time. So now we have actually created that as an output internally in the action, but we would like to use it in the flow as well. So we need to create the outputs as well. And just to show you from the scratch, let's do like this. Here we go. Where is my mouse? Here we go. So let's do the other way that I didn't tell you, because I still know what I would like to do. So let's go from the scratch. You can see me creating, and the first one we would like to be, and before I choose, I always select the labels. So we call that one users, and we like to be an array of objects. Then we call that object user, and inside that object we would like to have first name, and this is the labels that you will see in the data later on in the flow as well, which can be good to know. We want to have last name, and we would like to have sys ID. And let's see, how did I spell that? See somewhere. Yeah, that's right. Come on. That one should be. I don't really know if this is needed, but I always make sure it's exactly the same. What? I would like to go down. Yeah, thank you. So we have first name, fast name. This is how it goes when you should change stuff that already works. So first name, last name, sys ID, all small letters, first name, last name, sys. So that's correct. Now, if you build even more complex objects and you would like to have the same object on the output, you don't really want to recreate all these manual ways. What you can do is you can click, not on that one, on this one, and save as template. By doing that, enter name, we call it, I already had this one, but let's do it. Users v2. And what's good to know is when I hit this save as template, it will take a copy of the structure of the complex object as it is right now. So if I hit save and I later on add a field or remove or something like that, it will not be copied over to the template again. So that's like a snapshot how it looks like when you click the save as template. So make sure that you have the complex object set up right how you want it before you start messing around with it. Then you just go to the output, and as you might notice, you have two different views or versions of these kinds of output. You have edit, and you have where you define what value should go in here. So let's hit edit, and let's trash this one so you can see when I create it from start. You hit create output, and I always do like this. So I hit users, and it should be an array of objects, and by doing that, let's see if I can click on the right arrow. Here we go. So now we have structure. Should I create it manually or from a template? Then I click start from template, and here you can see all the templates that I have. So I'll select version 2, that's the one that we made, and then you can see it fills in the rest of you. Now we have defined those. I'll hit exit. Now I only need to say that what data should end up here, and that is this one. So I'll just drag and drop that one. Now let's test and see if it works. We hit test. And we look at the steps. We can see that we got some users. We got the right user records and the array of objects. If you just glance at it, you can see last name. It seems to work. So let's test this out with a flow. I'll just start from scratch instead of taking use of my pre-built ones. Let's just back up, I guess. Episode 25 users. I'll call it V2 as well, unless you just do like that for fun. And I'll just take whatever trigger I want, find my action. I think it was episode, there we go. What is the action? And this one is nice. I'll just hit save. What you can do when you're building these kind of actions is that you don't really need to publish them to be able to use them in the flows for testing. What you need to make sure is that if you click on the options here, configurations, make sure that you have this one slided to the right. That means that you can see also draft actions, which is quite good. So I'll just go for episode 25, show complex objects. Now we can see we have the naming that we had before. So this is what we get back. And what do we want to do with those? Let's just do like this, done. And then we'll take our for each, and we like to loop through our users that we get back. And then just make something so we can show that it works. Let's create an incident. Where we put the caller, and we have for each the sysid in the caller, and just say that, I don't know, short description. I hate my imagination, not that good. My last name isn't. Let's pull the last name as well. I'll hit done. Let's hit test, run, take a view. Seems complete. You can see that we can loop through all of those, and for the fun of it, you can see that open. Let's do like this, it's easier. Created on today. And there we have those four. You can see the color matches, and you can see the last names. So that is a good way to actually use complex objects and be able to do so. Hopefully have better examples or use cases than mine. Now for the last part, let's take a quick look of, let me just shut this down. Yeah, we don't care about those. And just going to show you about REST calls and the connection alias and stuff like that. So in IntegrationHub, when you want to do a REST call, you can use something called connecting alias. That means that you can basically define all the stuff in the connection alias and connections, and then when you move your flow to like test or prod, it actually knows which connection alias it's supposed to use. And in that connection alias you have like the base URL, the credentials and stuff like that, because normally you might have different endpoints on test, on dev and on prod, and you don't actually want to manually go in and edit that in the flow after you moved it to test. So what you do is that you create this connection and credential alias, just put a reference here that this is the one I'm going to use. Then one time you only create those connections on the different instances, and then it will know which base URL should I use now, and so on. And to show you, you just hit connection. You can see there are a few already out of the box, depending of course which spokes you have and stuff like that. So in this REST call, I'm actually just calling myself, my own instance. So I just call this one own instance. You can see that you can have both connection credentials, or if you have the same connection on all the places, you can have only credentials if you want. Another thing that's nice to know is about the retry policy, which is new in New York as well, which means that if you get some error back when you do the REST call, you can actually define here how you should retry, and you don't need to build that manually every time in each flow. You can actually build it here and then reuse it. So after you hit save, you get the connections down here. You can just click new, which I have done, and then you will pop up in here. The credentials will be empty because you haven't created them. This one is just a link to your connection alias, and what it needs you to define is, okay, what's the base URL for this connection? So if this has been correct, it might be like this, and when I created this one on test, it might be like that, and so on. And I just need to define this one. For the credentials, you just look it up. If you don't have anything, you just click new, define what kind of credentials is it that the endpoint has. In this case, I used basic authentication, just filled in the username and password, hit submit, and then just link it to this record instead. And then it's up and running and you can use it, which is really good. Then, as you might see, you have the base URL, but you need, for example, to know the resource path where I'm going to hit the endpoint. And since this is my own instance I'm going to, you have a really good explorer to look and test your APIs. Just type REST API Explorer. From here you have a few choices on the left if you have different scopes. I'm going to use the now scope because I'm going to use the table API, which is built in pretty much for every table. Define what you want to do. You like to retrieve records, many records. You like to read one record, create a record, and so on. Depending on what you choose, it looks a little bit different here. But we would like to retrieve a couple of records, just like we did with the lookup action in the other flow. Let me show you. Just like this one. We will do the same thing, almost. We're just going to fetch incidents instead, but with a REST API call. So I'll just say, okay, I would like to go into the incident table, and then you have a couple of parameters you can define. You have really good descriptions. Mostly just to show you, for example, active equals true. Let's have that as a filter. Since we're using complex object, it would be nice to have more than one. So I'll just say 10. And then we can pretty much just say, okay, let's test this one out. We got back, okay. If I scroll down, you can see here is the result. And it looks good. We got 10 different incidents from our instance. Now, for the resource path, if I scroll up, I get the URL. You can see this is the base, and then we have the resource path here. Then we can see that we have two parameters we defined earlier, sysprime query and sysprime limit. So what I have done is you can see I copied the rest of the URL, selected get, and then just filled in the two different parameters just as we did in the resource. In this case, I selected only 5. I said that, yeah, I would like to use the retry policy for this one, so I checked that one. And then we're good to go. So now we know that the response back ends up in the response body as a string. Default, it's a JSON object, so we get it stringified. So let's add a script step. Since we don't have a JSON parser yet, we only have the XML parser. So this is what I've done. I just named that the input variable response body should be the response body. Then I convert it into a JSON object. And as you can see, I pretty much do the same thing as in the other script. So I know that the result, and if you don't really know how it looks like, you can go back to response and you can see that, okay, here's the object and it starts with an array, and in that array we have object. So I get a complex object back. And I also know that the result is an array of objects. And I would like to loop through them to get to each incident that I got. So this one pretty much says to go through all the incidents that I got back. And I create an object. I say that the number should be the number in that specific object when I loop through. Same with the sysid. And then I push it into that one, into the array which I created over here. And you can see it's pretty much the same structure with this one as in the old one. And the same goes with the outputs as well. If I just go back, click edit, you can see it looks just like it as well. Good to know is that if you don't have wide enough on the browser, it might look like this, and you can see that some icons is actually missing. And I hope they'll fix that so you don't need to do that to actually see them. I noticed that sometimes when I moved it too small, I don't even have the plus sign, which can be kind of annoying. Or it's just looking and saying, I know there should be some icons, but you can't really find them, which is also very annoying. So, pretty similar. Let's just show you the rest step, and if you look on a flow, I can just show you that flow. And it didn't seem to have been saved, so let's build it then. Just doing the same stuff as earlier. I'll do the EP25 rest call. Always fun to make sure that it actually works what you have built, I guess. For each, you can see we have the instance over here. I'll just drag them in, and then I'll just create another incident for fun. Create record, incident, and I'll just do something like this. Short description, copy of incident, and I'll just pull in the number, and we're done. Let's hit test, hit run. And let's go back to our incident list. And now you can see we have the nice 5 instance being a copy of the other numbers we actually fetch. So this is how the complex object works. Before I let you go, I'm just going to show you one more thing, and that's about the templates. As you might notice, when I in the complex objects and hit save, let's do like that. Here we go. I always click on the wrong one. You can save a template, but you can't really find a place to like deactivate or remove one. And if you make something wrong and you would like to make a new template, when you go back later on, you will have a pretty large list here with templates that isn't even in use perhaps anymore. And I don't know if there is, and I have missed it. I couldn't find any UI where I can actually edit and change these ones. But of course there is a table for this. So what I did was went to tables and just guessed that it would probably have something with flow to do. And when I scroll down, let's see if I'm blind. No, it's not there. Where is it? There we go. Flow Designer Complex Objects Templates. Could have chosen a shorter name perhaps, but yeah, it works. And you can see the table name, SysHub Flow Designer CO template. So if I go into that list, here are my templates. And you can even see that if I change this one, let's just show episode 24. Let's go back to the flow. It's there. Let's go here and let's change it to false. Now I don't think it's this fast, it's probably already loaded. But if I wonder if this is good enough. Let's test it. I didn't do that earlier. Yeah, there you go. Now it's gone. So that's the place where you administrate right now your templates as well. So you have a table called Flow Designer Complex Object Templates, and you have a nice table name like this as well. So that's about it about complex objects. I hope it helps you a lot and you start building those right away. So see you around.